Welcome to another episode of Business Unleashed, a Plano Chamber podcast, presented by Baylor Scott & White Plano. Today we're diving into one of the most exciting projects happening right now in Plano, the Texas Research Quarter. We're joined by Eric Danielson, Managing Director and Head of Real Estate Development for NextPoint, to get an inside look at this life sciences hub that's set to reshape our city's future. NextPoint, our visionary sponsor, is leading this charge, and we couldn't be more excited to hear what's next for the project. We'll be covering everything from the business climate and workforce development to the future of life sciences right here in Plano. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of Business Unleashed, a Plano Chamber podcast presented by Baylor Scott & White. I'm Lakia Terry, our Director of Marketing and Communications for the Plano Chamber, and I'm so excited to welcome Eric Danielson, our Managing Director and Head of Real Estate Development at NextPoint. Eric's going to share with us about a brand new initiative coming to Plano, Texas Research Quarter. And I'm so excited for you to hear about all the wonderful things NextPoint is doing and what this is going to mean for the city of Plano, businesses, and everything. So we're excited. Eric, thank you for being here with us. And let's just dive in, share a little bit of information about yourself and, the project.
Yeah, Lakia, well, thanks for having me on first and foremost. And thanks to the Plano Chamber and the folks at Baylor Scott & White for making this possible. I think this is a great medium in which you can get a lot of information out quickly. So I'm happy to join you here today. And this is like I don't even know how many episodes you've done, like 80, something like that.
Yes.
So
yes.
yeah,
and so we launched. So we're already just into this year. We're about 8 episodes in. So
that's great.
We're doing good.
Good. Well, happy to be part of it here today, and tell you a little bit more about what we're up to at the Texas Research Quarter, what we do here at NextPoint, and then maybe more broadly, what's happening in the life sciences world, and why that's so important for this project, and important for Plano, and important for the Dallas community as well. Yeah. So you just want me to kind of give you a little background on kind of how we got here?
Yeah, absolutely. So share, where did this all start? Who thought of this and said, let's do this?
you gotta hop in the Wayback Machine. Okay. Yes. We're gonna rewind back to 2018. 2018, everything's blowing and going, right? American economy is doing great. Everything's going extremely well. People are in the office. Yes. And so NextPoint is we're a real estate investment company, and we've acquired the electronic data systems, the EDS campus, up there in Plano. So if you know anything about Plano, you probably know something about EDS, or at least you kind of see it. Right. You kind of knew that it was there, and maybe a little bit backstory, Ross Perot, or, definitely, I get a lot of like, oh, my dad used to work there, or like, oh, my mom had a spot in that office. So this that same EDS company, but they had been long gone out of that corporate campus for some time. And so when we acquired the campus, it was largely vacant, and it sat vacant pretty much ever since. And it's there's a lot of things that have happened over the course of the time since that acquisition occurred. Obviously, we thought that there was going to be a quick, easy transition over to a potential home for Goldman Sachs when they announced that they were coming to Dallas, or the Amazon HQ2 when they announced their headquarters search for another location. We got 1.6 million square feet of Class A office space in that complex. And so there was no shortage of potential office users that we could go to. Well, we all know what happens in early 2019, and the bottom falls out of the office market, and we go through COVID together, and now coming out on the other side, it's a different world. It's a completely different landscape. The days of those type of big corporate office campuses are starting to dwindle. And we are looking for ways that we're going to repurpose some of that existing office space into other things. We've seen a lot of conversions over into housing, seen a lot of just, tear down and rebuild of some of these older less efficient kind of, I'll call it, 20th century office environments, not necessarily 21st century office environments, right? So we went down the path starting to look at whether or not this was a likely conversion for a life sciences purpose. And, that's my background is in the life sciences, the design and construction side of the world. I've been part of that in the economic development side of the world for my entire career. And as we thought about whether or not you could convert this building, we started to look at some of the really specific components of it. The structural system, the amount of clear height that you have from floor to floor inside of a building, the amount of space you have, the amount of space that we have specifically in the structure itself on that building.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of those considerations that we had to give to in order to say, could this become a good research and development type of facility? And the answer is yes. So that, a lot of times when we do an exploration of these buildings and someone says, hey, I'd like to repurpose it for life sciences, it's never a no. I mean, you can do anything, right? But whether or not it is cost effective, whether or not it's going to, the kind of the ease of conversion, all of those different things that we consider, this one had those attributes. That's for sure. So we set forth a pretty aggressive plan to start to redevelop this existing 1.6 million square feet. But it also sits on 91 acres. And so you've got a lot of area around it that you can continue to develop. And the coolest thing about this whole project, Lakia, is that it sits right there on the corner of Legacy and Prestonwood. And so if you look at that Legacy district, that Legacy environment that's around it, that's what you would expect would be built up around a corporate campus like EDS when it was originally constructed back in the early 1990s. So we have the very good fortune, I always say we have the good fortune of standing on the shoulders of that project and that 40 years worth of development that has occurred, 30 plus years of development that has occurred, in which we know that Legacy district as it is today. And so for us to be able to repurpose something like that in an area where you already have all of those great amenities, it's a good opportunity for employees. It's a good opportunity for companies to relocate there. It's got all the makings of a really successful live, work, play environment. So that's what we saw when we started down this path here a few years ago.
That's really amazing that you can, see one thing, because a lot of people don't have like the vision to see things as they could be in the future. And so I think that's really, really good. So why do you think like of Plano, of all places? I mean, you could have did this anywhere. Like, Why do you think, why Plano?
Yeah. Well, a handful of reasons, right? First to your point about you can do this anywhere. It's already being done in a lot of places, right? So I mean, the kind of the primary life science ecosystems are located in Boston, San Diego, South San Francisco, and the Research Triangle Park area of North Carolina. Those are your United States domestic life science centers. Those are the primary ones. Now you've got a bunch of secondary and tertiary markets, right? And that's where I'm going to put Dallas and the kind of DFW Metroplex is definitely going to fall in that secondary component or secondary strata as you think about those other geographies. It's going to fall into that same camp as Houston. It's going to fall into that same camp as Denver. Places where there's a good amount of it, but it certainly doesn't get to the point in which it's a dominant market industry like it is for places like like Raleigh, Durham, or Boston. So when we look at those ecosystems and these primary ecosystems, and the reason that they're most successful is they've had maturation. Right? They've had an opportunity to see companies go from startup all the way through to, the brand name drug companies that we see today. They have that good fortune, but they also have the good fortune of a really strong workforce that's there. And they've been there and they've done this now for, up to 3 generations of people who have said, I went to, my grandparents went to work at this plant and now my dad and my mom and now I am. And there's that type of true generational connection with that manufacturing process. So when we take a look specifically at DFW, there are very, very unique attributes of the Metroplex, and then I'll get into the specificity of Plano. But as we take a look at the DFW Metroplex, it has one of the strongest workforces for skilled manufacturing. It has the strongest skilled manufacturing workforce in the state of Texas. And it has an incredibly strong skilled manufacturing workforce as compared with other metros across the company. So we know how to make these really high-tech products, right? Great example, Texas Instruments. I don't know, Lakia, if you grew up like I did, when you go to math class, you had your TI 81 or 83 or 85. If you were a cool kid, you had the 85. But that's like how I was introduced to like what high tech manufacturing looks like is, this little device in my hand that got me through pre-calc. But you take a look at some of the other drug makers who are already here. You take a look at AstraZeneca over in Capel, and they've just continued to expand and expand and expand and expand. And, so they've had the success that's there. You take a look at Riata, another local company that was there in Plano. They were just acquired here last year by Biogen. That's a great success story that we can point out and say, look at, a company that can start here and then ultimately be acquired by one of the biggest drug makers in the world. You take a look at what's going on over in Fort Worth with Alcon. And they are a true global leader in ophthalmology. That comes out of there. And so there's all the kind of the associated branches that come off of that trunk of Alcon with all these other different ophthalmology researchers that are there. UNT Health Sciences Center is there. I heard a good joke the other day from my buddy Cameron out at UNT Health Science Center. He said, we're ranked in the top, the top three in the ophthalmology schools in the country, and so the eyes have it. And so I thought that was a funny joke there. But so we have all these companies that are already here, but they're one-offs, right? It's not like there's all of these companies and they're all in one massive geographic location. They're all just kind of one-offs. But it shows that we've got the capacity for it. It shows that we've got the capacity for that type of success. All right, so that's on the manufacturing side specifically, right? But then there's all these other elements of a really strong life science ecosystem that we're looking for. We're looking for higher education institutions that are not only doing research, but then they're also doing the education side, the STEM education, education in the medical fields, all the doctor, the medical schools and nursing schools and everything else that's coming out of the medical profession. So you have to have that set of higher education institutions, and we've got that in spades here in DFW. The UT system, Texas A&M coming to town here pretty strong, and not only are here now, but coming even stronger here in the near future. UNT system. I mean, all those institutes are here, not to mention you have the private side and SMU and TCU and others. So we've got a lot of that in place already. And then that last piece, they're preparing for these, they're preparing these educators are preparing these folks to get out into the job market, and you've got to have the places in which there's the care occurring at the hospital side within their healthcare system. So you take a look at UT Southwestern and Baylor Scott and White and some of the other both research and health systems that are here, and we've got all those parts and pieces, right? What's really unique about DFW is that it hasn't been knitted together yet. And so I have, again, had the good fortune of working in all of these other primary life science locations. And they're very much in competition with each other. And there's not a lot of cooperation that you see in these places. And I think a lot of it's just attributed to the fact that they've been doing it for so long that they kind of don't have to cooperate with each other. What's unique about DFW is that we have to cooperate because of the fact that we're a secondary market and we want to become a primary market for the future. And so there's a very, very unique spirit of cooperation amongst all of these different, stars that comprise this constellation. And that's the real reason that I'm here. And that's the real reason that NextPoint's making this investment is I see that firsthand. I see that through, the work of Kelly Cloud at the Dallas Regional Chamber and the investment that we as a community have made in the life sciences and someone like her sitting at the DRC. I take a look at Gabby Everett and what she's doing at BioLabs over there at Pegasus Park and all the activity that they've been able to create with what they've done with that incubator and what the Lida Hill Foundation's been able to do at Pegasus. You just look at all of these parts and pieces and go, this is where it's gonna happen. I didn't see that in those other secondary and tertiary locations, and I certainly didn't see that in those primary locations either. And that's why I feel like we've got all the right parts and pieces to create a really successful life science ecosystem. But we're just really early on in it right now, but we're getting there for sure.
Most definitely. That's really cool to hear and really, like I said, really, really good. So let's dive into like Texas Research Quarter itself. I know we've just announced that, the city of Plano has, you've got your agreement together. Like talk to us more about like the project itself and, what that's going to bring.
Absolutely. So, first and foremost, it's a credit to the city of Plano and its leadership to recognize that redevelopment has to occur in order for the city to continue to sustain its success. And so the utilization of a very powerful economic development tool, the tax increment reinvestment zone, a TIRZ district, TIRZ, a TIRZ district, was created here at the beginning of the calendar year by the city. And then over the course of that period of time between now, just last week and the beginning of the year, we've been working with city staff and city officials on a development agreement. And our development agreement with the city of Plano gives us the opportunity to have some of the investment that we're about to make into the Texas Research Quarter reimbursable for us. Why that's so important, Lakia, is these facilities are just crazy expensive. When you're used to a traditional real estate development deal, you're going to go take a look at like an office construction. Like how much does an office cost to build? Well, probably about anywhere from about, kind of the low end, maybe $175 a square foot, maybe on the high end, like $300 or $400 a square foot. When you get into the regulated spaces of a life science, either R&D or a manufacturing center, these spaces cost in upwards of $1,200 to $2,000, even up to $3,000 per square foot. And they're just very, very expensive to create and to maintain. And so the city's contribution to that redevelopment district enables us to offset some of those significant costs. And so the city's recognizing if we want this type of investment, we're going to have to go figure out a way to partner with a developer like a NextPoint who can come in and do this. So very, very appreciative of the city and the willingness that they have to invest alongside us in this project. And that's a really, really critical component for it. So that's what's happened here within just literally the last week. We have been very softly marketing the research quarter to the end users, to our prospective tenants. These are going to be tenants that are, I always say, go open your medicine cabinet, turn around on the back of that bottle, and what's that logo say? Those are the type of companies that we're looking to recruit here. And the reason that we want those big brand name companies is because of the fact that we have the space for them. And that's what's really unique about TRQ, is that we can do everything at scale, a very significant scale. We've got this 91 acres that kind of surrounds the rest of the district, but then we also have two additional 22-acre parcels that are just on the north side of Legacy as well. And so we've got an opportunity to bring in very large scale manufacturing. And the city was a great listener when we started this process, and we got them to understand what a life science manufacturing facility looks like. There was a misconception on the front end that manufacturing was, dirty smokestacks and, truck traffic and, just that type of a look and feel. And they couldn't be further from the truth. You go to some of these manufacturing buildings that you drive by and some of these primary geographies where a lot of this is happening. It's hard to tell the difference between, that manufacturing building and an office building, or even that manufacturing manufacturing building and some other type of, like a distribution center or warehouse or something like that. So, I mean, these are intended to be very high tech, clean environments. And so when we've set forth the idea of having life science manufacturing, the city was, they figured out what that meant, and then they adopted it into our zoning, for our zoning district. So we now have the ability to do this large scale manufacturing that's never been done in Plano before. And so, only been done in a couple other places around the metro, like we talked about earlier. But this gives us the opportunity to go to some of those really large users and tell them, we can fit your 500,000 square foot building, right here on the corner of Legacy and Tennyson, or or Prestonwood and Tennyson, or Legacy and up along there. We can do up to 1 million square feet. And these big users, that's what they're looking for right now, is they're looking for these large scale manufacturing opportunities, because they're so few and far between, and in these geographies where they've historically been made. You literally can't get enough space to build these big giant buildings anymore. So what ends up happening is they just get pushed further and further and further out into, out of the metro. And so what this has done is it's bifurcated these companies, right? You have an R&D business unit that sits in Boston, for example, that sits in Cambridge. So you've got, MIT on your right, and you've got Harvard on your left, and, Fenway Park behind you, and the Green Monster. And and then all these companies are right there. But then the manufacturing is like an hour outside of town, right? And you gotta drive and go up there and figure out what they're doing. And so we've lost the connectivity between those two different business functions. TRQ provides us that opportunity to bring those back together, because we have the R&D space opportunity, but then we also have the ability to build around our existing buildings on those 91 acres and create more scale manufacturing. And that's the thing that's in the highest demand right now across the life science real estate world. And we have kind of the front end covered, right? If you go to UT Southwestern, they've got a massive amount of research space. When you need to create your own company and come out of one of those research labs, now you've got biolabs, and you've got the incubator that's there at Pegasus Park, and they're expanding that right now to create the next phase of that, which are graduate labs. Right now, they can stand on their own 2 feet. They've got revenue. They're good to go. They don't need to be supported by an incubator any longer. They can get into these graduate labs. And then the next stage for them would be to come to us, because now we can take you at scale. And there's a very clear, handshake agreement, for lack of a better term, with our friends down at Biolabs, which is, when they are ready to leave your development, send them to us, because we don't want to lose them in the metro. We don't want to lose them, to go to another city in Texas, or to leave DFW entirely. We want to be able to retain these companies and continue to grow them. So that's the opportunity that we have that's unique about TRQ, is that it's at scale, and that's the demand that's out there right now. So what we're doing is, beyond the continued conversations that we have with a lot of these prospects, and we're gonna land one really soon. I can't tell you the exact time frame, because it's not our decision, it's their decision. But they see all these things we've talked about so far on this pod. They see the workforce, they see the quality of life, they see all the legacy district and everything that's there for their employee amenities. And so one of them is going to select it. Now, in the meantime, we can't just sit and wait on our laurels. So we're prepared to start construction here at the end of the calendar year. We've got a lot of cleanup to do out there from, the better part of, almost a decade of nobody being there. We've had a great property management team that's taken care of everything up to this point, but, we're going to demolish a full garage. There's a massive garage on the north side of the park today, that we don't need anymore, because we're not trying to put, a bunch of office users into this space. We just don't need it. So we can tear that down and then, and create more space in order to accommodate future use. There's a fence that goes all the way around that whole site that was very, very intentional to keep people out. that just doesn't happen anymore, right? We want to invite people in. We want to put science on display. We want the legacy and Plano community to feel like they can come in. We've got, we're going to create some green space there on the west side of the existing buildings that are there, and that's publicly facing. That's very intentional to invite the Plano community into our park, into the Texas Research Corridor, because for the longest time it was that ivory tower. It was very intentionally, there's a berm and trees and security guard. I mean, that was all very stay out of here, right? And that's not what we want anymore. We want to have an opportunity to really embrace that community. So those are the changes that we're going to start here at the end of the calendar year. We're also going to go ahead and build a speculative manufacturing building on the southeast corner. It's about 200,000 square foot footprint. So the building, you look at it, would be about 200,000 square feet, but then there'd be 400,000 gross square feet, because you could put in a mezzanine, and that's be able to have kind of high base space where you up to about 40 feet to be able to have all the equipment that goes into that commercial scale manufacturing process for a drug maker. So we're going to do all that starting here at the end of the calendar year. We had to wait until our development agreement was done with the city. And so we've been, working for the better part of the last 2 years in preparation for all of this. And so now that we're actually ready to hit the ground running, we've got a lot of the work that we've already done is now ready to activate and start down that process. So you're going to see activity up there here in the very near term, which is really exciting. And hopefully the next time we have a podcast opportunity like this, Akia, we're going to be talking about one of these big brand name users that everybody wants to see as a new employment center in Plano.
And for our listeners, if you haven't yet, visit the website. There's beautiful images of, how the site is going to look. And the images are beautiful. So if you haven't, went on there, go and check it out. And we'll put the website in our show notes as well. But go out there and just, see what's coming, because it's really going to blow your mind. I looked at it and I was like, wow, these are beautiful.
Yeah, we're really excited about that, just to create that vision. And for us, who's we've been working on it now for as long as we have, just to start to see that physical manifestation of that vision, so close to just to us right now. Really exciting for sure.
Yeah. Well, here you spoke a lot about a lot of our educational institutions that we have here in the area. So what kind of role do you see the educational systems playing in the development of TRQ and, kind of life science industry as a whole?
Yeah, it's critically important that we have that educational component to the ecosystem, and thankfully we have it. And I think maybe more importantly is that there's a willingness to continue to expand what we already have. So again, because we've been softly talking about this with prospects until we got through this development agreement with the city. The one thing that they continue to come back and ask us is our workforce specific questions. They want to make sure that they have the ability to draw from this very large employment base we have, and that they can effectively get a jump start on someone who already understands some of these skilled manufacturing requirements, right, of these different job positions that they have. So we have the ability to relocate people from, that already have these skill sets, right? They want to leave Boston, leave California, whatever it is, and come here. And, I always ask, have you ever moved a tree? Ever see a tree be moved?
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a massive undertaking, and they, the root ball is, as big as the tree is from time to time. And it's just a huge, physical lift to literally move a tree.
Yeah.
Now, taking a seed and drop it in the ground takes a lot less effort, right?
Yes.
But you have to have lots of them. So I always say that, the right workforce here for DFW, for the life sciences, for the future. Yes, we're going to relocate some trees from the coasts, right? We're going to bring some of those trees here, but we got to be planting. We got to be the Johnny Appleseed of life science tree planting. And so we've got a lot of that already happening. So let's start with like the lowest grade. The K through 12 initiatives that are happening in and around the metro are really, really strong right now. The first thing that we're trying to do is just bring awareness to what the life science job sector is. You hear a lot of kids when they grow up, what do you want to be? I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a policeman. I want to be a football player, whatever it is. You don't hear a lot of people say like, ooh, I'd really love to be a diagnostic technician inside of a laboratory, or like, you just don't hear that. You hear a lot of doctor, but like you don't hear a lot of, I'd like to be a microbiologist so that I can figure out the next, the next round of biological drugs that are going to ultimately take care of a disease state. Like, so we're trying to just get some understanding and familiarity with what this life science sector is, because it's also really cool, right? I mean, like, we're saving people's lives every single day. Oh, so you're a doctor? No, I'm not a doctor. Like it's totally different, right? Like we're giving the doctors what they ultimately need to put in the patients so that they can be successful. So like you're playing your part. So we're seeing a lot more of that. A really good example is the Plano ISD. And they've got their STEM Academy that they've rolled out, and they're making a significant investment in a lot of programs right now. But their commitment to seeing those earliest learners have visibility into what this space means and what the jobs are that are out there, that's critically important, right? So shout out to the Plano ISD for figuring out what that looks like and their willingness to continue to invest on that front. Once you leave that, that cozy nest of the Plano ISD and Plano High School, or Plano East, wherever you are, once you've left and you're out, now you're headed into the secondary education side of it. Collin College is another great example of a biotechnology program where they have already set out the curriculum for a 2-year degree program. So you can go get your associate's degree and then automatically have, the ability to take that and turn it around and go to work for some of those other manufacturers we've already talked about that are here at DFW. They have said they've got a willingness to continue to expand that. And what we see is a lot of times is that these drug makers come in with a very, very specific way in which they do things, very proprietary for them. Yes, it's regulated by the FDA. They have to do it to a certain way. But that's their secret sauce, right? So they don't necessarily, it's not done the same way every single time. So what they want is a really specific skill set that they can say to a Collin College, go get me, as many graduates as you can who can do kind of this following list of skills inside of a laboratory, or skills inside of a GMP environment for manufacturing, good manufacturing practice environment. Go get me these and I'll hire them right now. And so there's almost like a guaranteed job on the other side of this, because of the fact that you can come out of a training program with a certification or a certificate that says you know how to do these skill sets. And so that's going to continue to expand. And so there's dollars that are coming from the Texas Workforce Commission for these new programs, especially in regard to reskilling, that I think is really important. We've got a lot of people in the Texas job market who understand how things flow through pipes, right? Just like as simple as it gets. You got a lot of oil and gas folks who understand how things go from point A to point B and through that distribution. It's the exact same thing in a life science manufacturing process for a drug or for a medical device that you're manufacturing, right? We understand how things happen. We understand how how fluid dynamics work and things go through the pipe. All we're doing is reskilling that, right? You knew how it worked in oil and gas. Now we're going to show you how it works in life sciences, and there's going to be a job for you over here. So this reskilling of our existing workforce and some of the dollars that the Texas Workforce Commission makes available to that, when you add in the Collin College certificate program and add in a K through 12 component as well through the Plano ISD, that's when you start to have this full spectrum of someone who starts at the earliest age, again, these seeds that we're planting at the earliest age, and they can now follow along all the way through becoming part of the 21st century workforce for a life sciences marketplace.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to say, like, Plano, we have the best schools, and we're so happy that that they had the foresight to be able to create programs that are going to help, children in the future, like you said, from, elementary to middle school, high school, and, on to college. I mean, I think those are great opportunities and, great information to share that they can take on, and see it progress throughout their whole lives. It's really cool.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So let's talk about, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but like one of the most exciting kind of aspects of it is, the workforce development. And, because in Plano, it's really, even here at the chamber, like that's one of our goals is to, help employers that are members of the chamber be able to build a skilled workforce. So how is, life sciences helping to build that skilled workforce in Plano? Well, not life science, but Texas Research Quarter.
Yeah, so we're going to be the real estate solution for all these jobs. There's got to be a place, a physical location where people are going to come to work and make these products or do the research, in order to create new ones. And so that's our role in this. We're not making the drugs, we're not giving them to the patients. We're just finding a way to do our part. And our part is to make sure that you've got the environment to do it in. And so that's our role within TRQ. Specifically for that workforce though, they there's a lot of money to be made
Yes.
in this right now, which is great. So if I'm the city of Plano, yeah, I want my residents to to have an opportunity to go make as much as they can, and then hopefully turn it right back around and continue to spend it in Plano, and and get that circular economy working, just like just like everyone hopes. So what we see are wages that are significantly higher in the life sciences as you compare them against other manufacturing sectors or other industry sectors as a whole. So that's the thing I think is most exciting about to take it to Plano. We already have a really, really strong corporate environment, right? You have a lot of great Fortune 50 companies who call Plano home. And so all we're doing is kind of creating just another subset of that, just another layer of that on top of what's already there. But yeah, these, the starting wages, once you get into even some of the kind of lowest jobs on the rung are still, are still $75,000, $80,000 starting wages, where, that's hard to compete when you're, if you're starting to, look at anywhere else, in the financial services sector or something else that's at, at that same base level, you're definitely not going to be making as much. So I think for the city of Plano to recognize that, understand the opportunity that it brings, and then, you start to look at kind of the educational attainment of a lot of these folks as well. These are PhDs. These are people who have gone on beyond, post-secondary degree programs. They're bringing their families, they're bringing others with them. So you're going to continue to grow the community, and grow the community with the kind of people that I think ultimately make communities very, very successful. And so Plano is the right place for that. And Plano has always been, as always, from its earliest days, had the vision to be that, and continues to reinvest in it to make sure that it's going to be able to maintain it.
It's definitely, I mean, like this has been such a great conversation, and such needed information. I know I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners have learned a whole lot too. I might be a little expert now on life sciences.
Hey, and listen, Lakia, that's what it takes, right? Every single person like yourself that's getting a little bit of education on this, that's what we have to let everybody know. Because every time you retell that story, every time you tell someone, hey, you should look into this life sciences thing, that's just that knitting together of all of these different assets that we have. So you have to do it. Everybody who's listening to this podcast has to do it. Every single time I get the opportunity to go talk to others in community setting, that's one of the things that I'm really advocating for is don't hide that light. Get it out there and go talk about it for sure.
Exactly. Because people are always wondering. And like I said, people here, we posted about it, you all released a press release about it. And so the internet has been buzzing about it, but people, I don't think, still had a good understanding of what this actually means, for the city of Plano and for our community. And so, like I said, it's really good to, hear it firsthand and be able now to take that information and, share the correct information, with somebody else. And like you said, we'd love to, have you back again as, as things progress, just to give us updates and share information, about it so that we can keep the conversation going. And then if our listeners have questions, we'll have more questions to, direct from them directly from the community. So I think that'll be, really a really good conversation to keep going.
Well, next time we do this, Lakia, we'll do it from the job site, and we'll have we'll have a bunch of construction going on behind us as opposed to sitting in the office today.
That would be great. And share with our listeners your website and how they could stay up to date, and stay in the loop about what's going on with NextPoint and with Texas Research Quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned our website, texasresearchquarter.com. You can go out there and take a look at what our master plan is and kind of what some of the renderings, like you talked about, that are there, just the imagery for what we want to have for the future. Probably the easiest way is on LinkedIn. Go follow the Texas Research Corridor on LinkedIn, and we'll make sure to continue to put a lot of information through that platform. And the easiest way for us to do it here at NextPoint. So texasresearchquarter.com, or follow us on LinkedIn. Texas Research Quarter.
Thank you so much, Eric, for being here. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks, Lakia.
We look forward to, having you back again, and next time on that job site. And that wraps up another great episode of Business Unleashed, a Plano Chamber podcast. A huge thank you to Eric Danielson for sharing his insights on the Texas Research Quarter and the incredible vision behind it. We're so excited to see how this project will shape the future of life sciences and create a lasting economic impact for Plano. A special thank you to NextPoint, our visionary sponsor, for making this possible. If you want to learn more about the Texas Research Quarter, be sure to visit texasresearchquarter.com. As always, thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe to the Business Unleashed podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep unleashing your business potential.